Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
Ho, 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 Critical Blasters, and happy Christmas Eve to everybody out there. With the holidays upon us, nobody's watching, so naturally it's a perfect time to be making a video. Today, I want to talk about Christmas comics. Now, when I was a kid, and they still had comics then, yes, we had to fight some dinosaurs to get them. They were on between here and the comic shop. They had these beautiful DC digests, and they were about the size of the Archie digest you see at Walmart. In fact, they were exactly the same size. And they had these compilations of holiday stories that had appeared throughout the years. And they were readable at that shrunken size because they didn't overcrowd the pages with text. If you try to read a Marvel Digest these days where they're just taking older stories and jamming them in, they're almost unreadable without a magnifying glass. Or maybe that's just me, and age is playing tricks with my eyes. I don't know. But I loved the heck out of those things. I loved seeing Superboy lead the Legion of Superheroes to find the Christmas star. I loved watching Batman go after a rogue Santa Claus thief. It was just a lot of Christmas fun. And thankfully, DC is having tremendous success in Walmart with their 100-page giants. Now this, for $4.99, this is a treat. For $4.99, you can barely get a 20-page comic at your local comic shop. Remember when they were 22-page comics? Yeah, I do. I remember when they were 80-page comics. So you're getting fewer pages for more money, but today's not the day to be talking about that, is it? No, today's the day to be talking about cool Christmas stories. And this one is nearly jam-packed with great stories. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it's completely jam-packed with great stories. Every story in here was fun in its own way and in its own tribute to the holidays. Starting off with this Flash comic book from Scott Lobdell, where Flash has to go into Iron Heights prison and put down a riot that has sprung up. Now, that has nothing to do with Christmas other than the fact that he was called away from an orphanage where he was playing Santa Claus, and he goes back to the orphanage at the end with a new ally for the day, somebody who can make things happen with snow and turn a Christmas miracle. So if you know anything about the Flash at all, you know who he probably teamed up with in the comic books to make this happen. And it's an uneasy partnership, but it's one for the day that works. The other story in here that probably the best story in here is Metropolis Mailbag. And this one here is from Dan Jurgens. Yes, it's Dan Jurgens and Jackson Guise. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. But Superman used to have a tradition where every year he would go to the post office, and they had saved all the mail and all the letters that were sent just to Superman because Superman had no address. And it was like Santa Claus in Miracle on 34th Street when they find the whole room full of letters that are saved for Santa every year that end up going to the dead letter office. That's kind of what Superman does. He goes in every Christmas and he reads them all at super speed and determines which ones he can do something about and which ones he can't. And that's where this story goes, but it's a little bit more realistic for a Superman story. And this is in the era where they toned down Superman a bit and brought his powers a little bit away from being a planet pusher. So there were things in here that he couldn't do, and it's a truly heartbreaking story in many places here. Dan Jurgens is a master at this kind of thing. He's a veteran of the comics industry, and this is definitely one of his better pieces, truly deserved being placed in this classic collection of stories. And it ends with some tear-jerking moments. There's somebody who dies in here that can't be helped, and there's some great moments where Santa Claus appears to another group of orphans who were otherwise going to go without presents. The story following that one, not the greatest, but that has less to do with the story than with the fact that I really didn't care for the version of Supergirl that was being touted at the time, the more of a smartass, I really don't want to help people, but I'm having to do it because apparently it's a family tradition kind of thing. It's not was not my cup of tea, but only because of the characterization herself and the way Superman and she interacted. The story itself was a fairly good one. She's straightening a guy up for Christmas so that his daughter can have a happier life. And whether or not it takes is something you really don't expect to happen long term. Tom King enters this one with Good Boy. Now this was an Alfred story. This was very interesting. This is one of those ones where once again you see that Alfred is the one with the brains in the Wayne Manor, and Bruce is a little bit more oblivious to what's going on around him, being focused on being Batman all the time. But in this instance here, we have a dog that was one of a pack of dogs that had been abused by the Joker and left to fend for themselves. And this one, they were all wearing little masks with card emblems on them from the royal suit. So he was the Ace. And of course, we know Ace the Bat Hound has a long and lengthy history with the Bat family. So this would be basically the origin of Ace the Bat Hound. And Ace had killed all the other dogs that he'd been left with because they were starving to death and he'd been abused and he was just a very vicious dog. So Alfred takes it upon himself to check Ace out of the animal shelter and bring him back to Wayne Manor, where he's not very welcome and he still remains vicious. And Alfred spends several months training Ace to behave and be tamed and be a good boy. And it happens that, Ace learns his lessons right around the end of December. And there on December 25th, Bruce is accepting Ace and actually giving him his own little bat cowl to wear. And seeing Bruce Wayne talk to the dog in the way that we talk to dogs, we talk to them like they're babies. He's giving him the mask and says, for maybe Halloween or something. He's like, "What do you say, boy? Do you want to be a bat hound? Yes, you do. Yes, you do." That's not typical Bruce Wayne, and yet to see him interact alone with a dog like this, it kind of brings out that lost little boy that's inside of him that died the night his parents were killed in an alley, which is, of course, what Alfred wants to bring out. And then Bruce has the temerity to ask Alfred, "Hey, where's my Christmas present at?" And Alfred, once again, knows, who the world's greatest detective sometimes is not. We have more in here. We have a Batwoman story that was fairly nice. This one's more of a Hanukkah story. Got to get the in there. Harley Quinn is done in a more cartoonish style from Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti. And this is one where she finds a gray hair on her head and she has to go out and find Father Time and before he passes things on to the baby New Year so that time will no longer progress.
And then there's this last story in here with Green Lanterns.
And I'm looking for a title on it. I don't see a title. But basically, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz celebrating or preparing to celebrate King's Day when they're called to an alien invasion, incursion type of thing. And they get trapped there by these three aliens who have three tests to put to them. The allegory is a little bit strong. I'm kind of surprised that neither one of them saw this. But they had three tests, and if they fail, then die. So naturally, they have to succeed, and they do succeed in just a few pages. And
Actually, they passed the tests rather simply, almost too simply for my liking, but it was enough to get the story point driven home. I was a little bit weirded out that Simon Baz was celebrating Three Kings Day and the Christ child in the little king's ring here at the end of it, symbolizing hope. Simply because the last I checked, I thought Simon Baz was Muslim and had a different religion that wouldn't actually celebrate Christmas. But hey,
I like the fact that they can show that people of different faiths and backgrounds can get together and celebrate each other's heritage. So if you haven't gone to Walmart, this is in the usually at the end cap where they have all the other collectibles, all the pop vinyls, and all the Walking Dead figures. Grab yourself one of these. It is definitely worth the effort, and it's definitely worth the time. It's a great holiday read, something to do, kick back on the couch while all the climbing in boxes and throwing out the bags of wrapping paper and figuring out batteries in your toys. For Critical Blast, I'm